controlled substances, and from the workplace testing policies, and focus on some very different aspects of drug and alcohol issues. The key theme in this unit is help, how and where to get it if a problem exists or arises, how to ask for it, and how to help others. We'll also discuss treatment and rehabilitation, as well as employee assistance programs, while also offering insight into how a person can identify a problem and deal with it before the consequences become. When a Department of Transportation regulated employee tests positive for drugs or fails their alcohol screening, the case is turned over to a substance abuse professional, sometimes referred to as SAP. These professionals serve a number of important functions. Chiefly, they evaluate on a case-by-case basis employees who have violated DOT drug and alcohol rules. While consequences, both immediate and long-term, are strict and highly regulated, not every case of drug or alcohol misconduct is the same. Substance abuse professionals determine, based on their evaluations, the best and most appropriate options regarding treatment and education, as well as follow-up, testing, and aftercare. SAPs are often referred to as the gatekeepers to the reentry program. Rather than adhering to a uniform weighting program, which could be too quick for some and excessive for others, these gatekeepers offer individual evaluations and recommendations for when an employee is ready to return to duty. Like most professionals, SAPs are required to have specific background and credentials, including clinical experience in diagnosis and treatment of substance abuse-related disorders. They're also required to complete qualification training and take periodic continued education courses. This is particularly important since substance abuse treatment has changed and advanced considerably over the years and continues to do so. In making return-to-work recommendations, substance abuse professionals consider the specific safety-sensitive duties of the employees in question. SAPs aren't advocates for either the employer or the employee. In other words, they don't take sides, and the return-to-duty recommendations are based on professional and ethical standards as well as Department of Transportation regulations. We mentioned this early on in the course, but it bears repeating. Not all employers have a return-to-work policy. Many simply terminate workers who fail drug and alcohol tests. Even when a substance abuse professional issues a return-to-work recommendation, the employer is under no obligation to reinstate an employee. Anyone who's had a few too many at some point or have had personal experience with drug use or a drug user know that there's other ways besides testing to detect alcohol and substance abuse. In this section of the course, we'll look at drug and alcohol awareness and detection methods that do not involve testing. While chronic alcohol and drug use clouds the mind and affects motor skill and judgment, individuals are still sometimes able to see that they have a problem. If you're using illegal drugs or abusing alcohol and find yourself unable to stop or consistently avoid this activity, the smartest move is to seek evaluation and treatment. The internet, local health organizations, and even the Yellow Pages have information on nearby treatment facilities. The United States Department of Health and Human Services has an online treatment facility locator that can assist in finding evaluation and treatments specific to your problem. The address is www.findtreatment.samhsa.gov. For some, help is even closer. Many employers have programs aimed at assisting personnel with substance abuse, mental health issues, and other problems that affect job performance. Not all employers offer such assistance, and smaller companies are less able to provide these programs. Presence may also vary from industry to industry, but many employers have witnessed their value and initiated various types of workplace assistance programs. In many cases, these programs assist not only the drug and alcohol abuser, but also family members who may have been affected by this destructive behavior. Whether or not you have had personal experience with addiction, either direct or through a loved one, you're no doubt aware of programs that assist family members of alcoholics and substance abusers. Some workplace assistance programs offer help not only to employees, but to the loved ones as well. If you are seeking help, you may want to first determine if an employee assistance program exists within the company. Employees are generally notified of such programs, but if you are uncertain of a program or assistance efforts exist, your company's Human Resources Director should know, as should your labor organization rep, if applicable. While programs have many different names and emphasis, the generic term Employee Assistance Program, or EAP, accurately describes almost every type of program of this type. Remember as well that you're only posing a basic question. Do we have an employee assistance program? Save the specifics of your problem for the assistance personnel or referred evaluation and treatment professionals. In most cases, employee assistance programs are fully confidential. The exception would be when an employee or someone else's life is in danger. Many employee assistance programs focus primarily or entirely on substance abuse issues, but some have an increased scope that includes prevention and health and wellness activities. Some programs of this kind are linked to the employment benefits packages. While your employer may or may not offer substance abuse assistance, nearly every community has some sort of counseling or treatment resources. It used to be that if you needed help for this type of problem, you had to either be in a big city or travel to one. Now even small rural counties have resources, and those who do not can steer you toward nearby options. Another excellent way to find a treatment resources in your area is to visit findtreatment.samhsa.gov. This website provides contact information for substance abuse treatment programs by state, city, and U.S. territory. At the end of this unit, we'll provide additional information on various substance abuse-related agencies and organizations. Here's an interesting question. If I identify and admit that I have a substance abuse problem, have I therefore violated company rules and Department of Transportation regulations? The answer, it depends. Some employers offer referral programs where workers can report themselves before a drug or alcohol problem results in violation. The employee can then undergo evaluation and treatment and return to duty upon its completion. Whether your company offers such a program or not, early identification is always key. In other words, deal with it before it results in violation, job loss, and other dire consequences. So what if I report myself immediately after a test has been announced? Nope, it doesn't work that way. Self-referrals do not qualify as such if volunteered right after a testing announcement. It also does not excuse you from submitting to the test. The upshot of this rule, refer yourself when the problem arises or when you become aware of it. Don't wait until you're about to get caught. To speak or not to speak when aware that someone else has a problem is up to no good or might cause harm to others. It's always a hot button issue. We've all heard of the infamous blue wall of silence that sometimes inhibits investigations of police misconduct. Let's face it, most of us don't wish to be tattletales, but when it comes to drivers and safety-sensitive employees, we're talking about human lives being at stake. As a result, many employers have peer reporting programs in place. These programs, which, like voluntary referrals, are often initiated by employers or sponsored by unions, encourage identification of coworkers with substance abuse problems. Sometimes peer reporting programs also enlist friends of the troubled worker to approach him about seeking help. Obviously, it would not be easy to step forward and report that a coworker, especially if it's someone you're fond of, is abusing alcohol or drugs, and safety-sensitive duties may be affected. Think, however, about how your conscience would be burdened if a human life were lost due to this person's problem and continuance of work while under the influence. One reason why self and peer reporting are useful is that they often result in help and treatment rather than a pink slip. Supervisors in DOT-regulated and safety-sensitive fields receive drug and alcohol awareness training that extends beyond what regular employees receive, and one of its focuses is identification and recognition of signs and symptoms. While detection by a supervisor of a drug or alcohol problem isn't an automatic recipe for permanent dismissal, the simple reality is that bosses often make personnel decisions, they hire and they fire, so a recognition of volunteering of problems before the supervisor notices shows initiative and a willingness to deal with the issue. Earlier in the course, we explained reasonable suspicion testing, which occurs when a supervisor or company official observes behavior or appearance that's characteristic of alcohol or drug misuse. Supervisors who spot signs or symptoms of substance abuse generally order immediate reasonable suspicion tests before removing a worker from duty. Approximately 60%, 6 out of every 10 people with substance abuse problems, also suffer from depression or other mental conditions. Regardless of whether one cites complex research studies or the millions of people who drown their sorrows, drink to forget, or practice other means of self-medicating, it's clear that many substance abusers are attempting to ease their depression. Sadly, many individuals do not remain sober or drug-free after rehabilitation because the underlying medical problem was not addressed, and once the depression hits again, they go back to controlled substances for relief. The good news is that substance abuse professionals are more aware than ever of depression and other mental health disorders and their connection to alcohol and drug abuse. If the possibility of depression or other mental conditions are not addressed by your substance abuse professional, you owe it to yourself to mention it as a possibility. Not all sufferers of depression are aware of their condition, and many more don't fully understand its symptoms and often devastating and debilitating effects. On your screen, we'll now show you some places you can turn to for further information on drug and alcohol addiction and abuse. Some of these organizations offer books, guides, courses, and other accessible materials for the public, while all are useful resources for information on various aspects of drug abuse and addiction. Washington, D.C.'s Institute for a Drug-Free Workplace issues a guide to drug and alcohol abuse prevention that's useful for both employee and employer. Another useful resource is the National Clearinghouse for Alcohol and Drug Information. They publish materials, produce audio-visual presentations, while also providing support and networking for workers and employers alike. Here are some additional organizations devoted to assisting those with substance abuse or addiction-related problems. Each of these organizations are outstanding sources of information for employers as well as friends and loved ones of substance abusers.